Strap yourself in and get ready. The leaders in BBL Supercoach are incoming. Running in off the back fence to give you the ultimate insight to help you dominate your mates and climb up in the rankings. You're now listening to the Insight BBL Show with your hosts, Brain and Horse.
Yes, g'day guys, welcome back. You're watching another episode of the Insight BBL Show. It is episode 2 of the season, and as always, I'm the Supercoach Brain, and the Supercoach Horse is with me, as always, mate. How are you going?
Hey, mate, going well. Nice weekend with the family away, and now we're back into the grind starting tomorrow, and we're getting stuck into some serious BBL content, starting with the schedule.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to ripping in. We did our first live of the season, Horse, a couple of days ago, I think it was now, and it was good to see people. There's tons of people out there already as keen as we are and changing their team and getting involved in the live chat. So it's good to have a chat with everybody and bring back that BBL Supercoach conversation again.
Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a few people that have missed cricket and they've been hanging out for it, aren't they?
Yeah, that's it. It's good. We've got some domestic cricket happening at the moment. We're starting to get a little bit of an early look on a lot of these guys we talked about the other night, and players that we'll definitely be talking about a lot more. But, mate, we should rip in. Before we do, hit the subscribe and like button, guys. If you want to support the show, we would appreciate that. For those of you on podcast and listen to audio, you can if you love the content, just give us a 5-star review. We'd love that. Now, mate, we're here to talk schedule. Now, obviously, schedule is probably the make or break, really, isn't it, when it comes to being successful playing BBL Supercoach? You really need to target those double game weeks.
You absolutely do. You get 2 cracks at the cookie, so to speak, with your players that you've got on your side to score you your points. You don't want to load up on single game week players because then you're giving your opposition that you're playing against that week in your certain leagues the upper hand.
Absolutely. So we need to, we've got to target these doubles pretty heavily to start with. And this year it's a little bit different, Horse. It's pretty front-ended with all the double game weeks. Normally we see them spread out throughout the season. There's 9 rounds, obviously, for Supercoach purposes. And we normally see them kind of scattered throughout the full season, but it's very front-ended. Like the majority of them are rounds 1 to 4, and then you don't see much at all.
No, you're right. There's only 2 teams that miss out on doubles in the first 4 rounds, but then from round 5 through to round 9, so we're talking 5 rounds there are only 2 teams that are on the double in the back end of the season or the back half of the season. So it pops the question, mate, that you spoke about a bit off air. Do you use your boosts early to maximise your double game week players?
Look, honestly, I don't hate the tactic at all to, rip the boost a couple of weeks in a row and just set your team up for the rest of the season. It is only a short season. For those of us that are so used to NRL and AFL, the footy codes of Supercoach, you've got, 24 to 27 rounds of footy. You've only got 9 rounds to make it happen here. And I think we mentioned it on the last pod. Andrew Langley, who won back-to-back BBL Supercoach the last couple of years, he talks about making $500,000 in the first 4 rounds of the season to set his kind of team value up. So it's going to be pretty determining, it's going to be determining factor on how many doubles and how many of these good cheapies you get on to start.
100%.
All right, let's get the schedule up on the screen. Now, for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll see this up on the screen here. We're going to refer to this a ton over the next 3 months or so because, like we said, it is very important. But we'll leave it up on the screen for a little bit. We're not going to have it here the whole time, but if you want to screenshot it so you can reference it, then I would recommend you do so. Now, as Mick said at the start of the show, you can see the Renegades and the Stars are 2 Melbourne teams. They have the double at the start in round 1 to kick things off. And the good thing here, Horse, and I'll come back to you on this, they don't play each other to start. No, so usually, I think Andrew Langley mentioned it as well, that obviously there's, you don't want your double game week teams playing against each other, because then if you've got let's say Stars are versing Renegades and you've got a Stars bowler and a Renegades batsman, one of them are going to lose, aren't they?
Yeah, they're just stealing points from each other. So in saying that, it's key that you get your double game weeks against opposition that aren't on the double game weeks as well, and opposition players that you don't have in your side. One, you're not death riding players, but at the same time, you can support your team or your players without having to worry about conceding points, whereas other people might be gaining on you.
Yeah, that's right. Spot on. Now, obviously, we'd be silly not to target the Renegades and the Stars here, right? Kicking things off both on the double in round one. I don't know about you, but there's some really, really obvious options from the Stars in, guys like Glenn Maxwell, Tom Curran, Bo Webster. They're probably the three kind of guns that you would consider in that position. Ben Duckett misses round one, so unfortunately he's not going to be in the conversation to start BBL Supercoach. Any kind of smokies or anybody standing out for you? Because they're the only team in the competition, the Stars, that have 5 games in the first 3 weeks. So they're the team for me that have the best schedule that you need to be targeting straight away.
Spot on. There's going to be players that are going to be spoken about, i.e. Marcus Stoinis, Sam Harper, Osama Mir, who we've seen has missed the Pakistan squad. So he could be available for round one. We're going to keep a close eye on practice matches leading into round one, so we'll be all over that. But and names like that, Steckity, Paris, there's names that may make their way into your side depending on form and depending on these practice matches. So it's pretty important. 5 games in 3 rounds. They've got the best schedule alongside the Adelaide Strikers, who, even though they've got a single in round one, Brain, they've got then 5 games in 3 rounds.
They do. So the Stars and the Strikers are the 2 top teams for me, and they both have 6 games in 4 rounds in the first 4 rounds to kick things off. Obviously, with the Renegades, we see the Renegades here. We'll bring the schedule back up on the screen very quickly. They've got the double, then they've got the single, but the unfortunate thing for the Renegades, it really kind of gets in the way of you being able to hold on to too many of these guys, is that round 3 bye. Now, they're the only team in the first 5 rounds that actually have a bye to kick things off, which is incredibly frustrating because we could probably... I don't know about you, but there's probably more Renegades players I like from a Supercoach perspective than there are Stars players. So I'd really love to load up on the Renegades instead. But you can't really do that with the round 3 bye.
You can't, no. So we're talking the likes of Zampa, Richardson, Seifert, Sutherland. There's some really good Supercoach options there, but they're one of only 3 teams that have a bye alongside the Adelaide Strikers, who have a bye in round 6, and the Stars, who have a bye in round 8.
Yeah, that's right. So, you mentioned a few really good names there and a few smokies. There's 2 guys and they're batsmen only, and this probably will be a conversation to have when we're talking about the flex position, which we'll do in our beginner episode coming up. So we'll talk about, we're putting an episode together on all of our tactics and the way that we play and how to win Supercoach this year. So that'll be coming out in the next few days after this episode. But 2 guys I'm looking at potentially would be Tom Rogers, the opening batsman from the Stars. Not the Renegades bowler, but the opening batsman from the Stars. Now, when you get a bit of a free swing with the flex, he could be a nice kind of cheap option that could come off if he hits a few runs on the double. And then the other guy for Renegades, there's 2, for the Renegades, is Jake Fraser-McGurk for obvious reasons. He's an incredible talent. That kid hits the ball probably further than anybody I've ever seen, bar Glenn Maxwell. And Josh Brown, who just got signed by the Renegades as well, as a massive option there too. So, we're going to talk a lot more about these guys and these squads in depth when we do each team preview. We're not going to talk tons about our selections and our picks tonight. But, stay tuned for those, mate. Now, Strikers, you mentioned, missed that round 1 double. If they had the round 1 double, I'll tell you what, Matt Short would be in 100% of teams, but he's not because they don't have the double to start. We talked about our tactics the other night, Mick, on how we were going to approach the Matt Short dilemma, but he's a must in round 2, isn't he? Because they come into the double.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. Like, it's hard leaving him out for round 1, but purely from a balance point of view, and that I want to make the best squad that I can. 300K for one player, as good as what he is, I just can't do it to start with. We see that the Stars go single-double after their double in round 1. One of the plans moving forward might be to trade Maxwell out into Short and then perhaps back to Maxwell, depending on how much money we make on our other choices that we'll have for you before round 1.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the thing, we're going to be doing a little bit of trade hopping or, from Maxwell to Short to Maxwell back to Short again if you're targeting those doubles, which don't get me wrong, it works fine. The problem with that, though, is that potentially you could lose some money making those trades, and you're also using, I think, 3 trades through that period just on one player to another. But to be honest, I think it's worth it because they're the 2 best players in the game. And I think you just need them on their doubles, regardless of the situation. Now, if you can have both, and if you can find a way to keep both, free up a ton of cash in another trade and keep Maxi and get Short as well, fantastic. But I don't know how easy that's going to be to do. to start things off. So you're going to have to pick your battles there, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we've called Stars best schedule. Strikers, I think we both agree, is the second best schedule. So we're lining up on guys obviously like Short. Darcy Short, I don't know whether he's as relevant, but he's still, one of those guys that around the 110K mark can go big and get you runs when he needs to. Chris Lynn, probably too expensive for me. But Henry Thornton, a guy we've both talked about pretty big so far in this preseason. Do you call him a must-have?
He nearly has to be. I've had a few DMs speaking about how he's not in the Adelaide squad or the South Australia squad at the moment. Sorry for Sheffield Shield or the one days, but we know how good of a bowler he is in T20 cricket, and he will play and he will bowl death for the Adelaide Strikers. So for me, he's a must-have, especially with that round 2 and round 4 double. He's a bowler that could really go large. And
with so many of these premium bat bowl all-rounder guys that we need in your Currans, your Maxwells, your Websters, your Sutherlands, your Aaron Hardys, these guys, you're going to need to free up cash by getting these cheaper guys like Henry Thornton. So I do like him. I like Buckingham as well. Hopefully he's fit by the time the season kicks off, but he's just had a side strain for Australia recently. Yes. So that's a shame. We'll keep an eye on his injury status in the lead up. Cam Boyce and Pope, yeah, sure, you could probably take a punt on one of those guys, but there's a bit of a logjam with the quicks at the moment. 3 doesn't fit into 2, so I feel like one of these guys is going to miss out. And if Buckingham is injured at the start of the season, this could pave a way for James Bazley at 58K to be the guy that probably is that enabler that allows you to get those more expensive guys.
Yeah, I don't mind the Bazley pick. He's played well. Was it 2 or 3 seasons ago when he was at
Brisbane
Heat? Yeah. And then didn't really get much of a crack last year, and that's why he's so cheap at the moment. So that's definitely an eye or a play that we're going to keep an eye on during the preseason.
For sure. You know what? After the Strikers, I'd probably say the Perth Scorchers have the next best schedule purely because they have a round 2 double. I think you just need to target these guys, and also you need to target good teams. Like the one probably piece of advice, and we'll talk about this a lot more in depth in the next episode, is don't just pick average players on the double because they're on the double. I would much rather Aaron Hardy or a Josh Inglis or a Jai Richardson or an Andrew Tye on a single than chasing
Jonathan Merlo.
Fuck, if you're picking him, you probably aren't watching this show. But picking, an average player, a guy that averages 20 or 30 just because he's on a double, it doesn't really make sense. And I think this is where you can get caught up in the schedule and looking at it too deeply, and just picking players for the sake of it on a double is a recipe for disaster, I think. So Perth Scorchers, on coming back to that conversation of having the 3rd best schedule, they're probably one of the best teams in the comp. Well, not probably, they are one of the best teams in the competition. And they've got some of the best players in the competition. So there's nothing wrong with picking these guys to start the season, knowing that they're coming into a double like the Strikers are.
And they've got some really good depth there as well. Like we talk about Beardman, who, as a young quick, 19 years old and bowls mid-140s. He's the next coming of Lance Morris.
100%. He's very good. It might take him a couple of years, but kid's only 18, or I think he just turned 19. He's special. He'll be good. But yeah, guys like Hardy, I think are really good to start with. I think you've got Inglis there that you're going to want to have in round 2 in the wicketkeeper slot. So starting him early, or even using him as a loop because Perth play the first game of the year, that could be a play off the bench as well if you've got that flexibility with the loophole option.
Could be.
Jai Richardson is super cheap, 130K. We've put a post up on socials about how good he is, so he's definitely a guy I'm looking at. AJ Tye also will guarantee to bowl the death nearly every time he has the ball in his hand. So there's some fantastic options at Perth. Even we're looking at Finn Allen. He could be a guy, maybe you don't start with him, but Finn Allen could be a Seifert downgrade in round 2. So targeting these elite international players could be the key, especially at Perth, who rely heavily on their locals, don't they?
Heavily.
So I reckon Scorchers have the 3rd best schedule. Renegades probably have the 4th best schedule for me. So I think it goes Melbourne Stars, Adelaide Strikers, Perth Scorchers, and then the Renegades purely because they have that bye. If they didn't have that bye, I'd probably say that they have the 2nd or 3rd best, but I'm going to say they got the 4th best due to that bye.
Yep, I agree.
The one thing we can probably do, though, on the bye, you don't have to trade all of them out. I think what would be a smart thing to do would be to use potentially one in each position as a loophole.
Yeah.
So we will talk through how to loop in the next episode too. So stay tuned to that.
We will. That is if you are happy to have, say, a Sutherland at 150K on your bench as your loop. That it can work out, especially for the back end of the year, but you need to be strategically spot on in order for that to happen.
It all comes down to what their break even is too. Like if, Sutherland's going to drop a ton of cash the next time he plays, maybe you want to get off him early, rather than, and then keep the guy who's got a negative break even as your loophole option, so that you're still going to continue to make cash. So that's another thing that you can think about. Back to the schedule, mate. We've got the Sydney Sixers, I would say, have the 5th best schedule. They're a bit of middle of the road. They've got a round 3 double game week against the Melbourne Stars and the Brisbane Heat. Yeah, first 2 weeks aren't amazing, but they play the Renegades and the Thunder. You probably consider both of those games to be advantage Sixers, in my opinion anyway. So, guys like Sean Abbott, Hayden Kerr, Jack Edwards, they're the guys that I think that are at the top of the list for me. Sean Abbott, one of the ones where he's putting his hand up at such a severely discounted price that I think you could probably start with him and feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I'm really high on Sab, but Jack Edwards, for me, he's my man. After Tom Curran had the indiscretion with the umpire last year, Jack Edwards went bang, 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 bang. And 4 of his 5 games, he went over 77. So he's someone that I'm really keen on this year and I think will improve or take that next step as well.
For sure. I agree with you on that. Mate, your Brisbane Heat have a round 3 bye as well, but I've got them ranked under the Sixers. They're the defending champions, but they're playing the Stars. They're playing a very strong Strikers team, and then they've also got Perth and the Sixers on their double game week. So they haven't exactly got an easy schedule to start the things off.
Remember last year how they had, was it the triple game week to start?
Yeah. Yep.
It's amazing what 12 months does with scheduling.
That's right. And whilst they are the team to beat, technically they won the chip last year. They're the team that everyone's going to be gunning for. They've got a pretty tough start. Round 1, we don't know what the Stars are going to be like, but usually they've been poor. So we'll see how they bounce back this year with the signings they've made. But, Strikers, Perth and the Sixers are going to be all tough matchups. So, I'd say the Heat, whilst I have been looking at a couple of guys from the Brisbane Heat, there's not a ton that I'm loving from round 1. Purely just because of that schedule. So we'll have a lot more of an in-depth chat about them probably in round 2 or 3.
0 for me to start.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know what? The only guy that I'm looking at is Nathan McSweeney, purely because of the fact that he's a gun and I love him. But he could be the test opener this year. So
I think was it 12 months ago that we spoke about him being the next big thing to come out of Shield cricket, and he just looked that good.
Yep. And do you remember last year? It was all the conversation about the PM's 11. Who's going to make the PM's 11? And he made the PM's 11. Nisa was expecting a kid and also played in the PM's 11 game for bits and pieces. It was just a mess last year. So at least that hasn't gotten away just yet. But we'll see. We'll see how that looks in the coming weeks. The Heat, I've got none of them. Sydney Thunder, they've got no early doubles until round 6. Yuck. Not only are they a poor team, an average team at best. They've made some good signings. I think they'll be better this year, but they're still a team that I would consider in the bottom 4 of the competition. So not a team I'll be targeting early on. There's not really any cheapy guys that are putting their hand up and screaming out, pick me. So I'm going to let the Thunder through to the keeper until we start getting around that round 5, 6, and then Daniel Sams starts to be a guy we target then.
That's the one I wanted to bring up, Sams.
I think he will be a must-have on their double, and then we'll have to look at form from there.
I think one player I want our viewers to keep an eye on at home is Rutherford, the West Indian import. He made 50-odd against – who did they play in the last one day? They lost England. 50-odd off 30-something balls, and he was striking it to all parts of the ground alongside Shea Hope, who scored 127 in that one day as well. We see that he's the West Indian import for the Hobart Hurricanes. It's just unfortunate that they've got one of the worst draws of the BBL season again. Great
segue into the Hurricanes, who are last on the list, mate, for good reason. They don't have a double until round 8. I mean, look, we're going to be loading up on Hurricanes at the back end of the season. I'm sure we will be to take advantage of that. But I'm not touching anybody from this team to start things off, just because, again, I think they're going to be a bottom 4 team in the comp. And there isn't really anybody. I mean, Paddy Dooley, severely discounted. Maybe you take a punt on him.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else really that you'd love from the Hurricanes enough to start with on singles?
I don't. There's a lot of awkward prices. Like Paddy Dooley is one that sort of has my interest a little bit. But when you're talking about Tim David, 72K, Peter Hatzoglu, 71K, they're just at that awkward price where you're like, no, I don't think I can. The only one is, as you just said, Paddy Dooley. The season before, he averaged, I think it was a tick over 60. He was quite good and almost priced at 200K. So I think there's definite upside there. And with Hussein now being ruled out of the BBL, that opens up more overs for him as well.
Yeah, that's a huge out for them. Their draft pick, Rashad Hussain, obviously from Bangladesh, didn't get released, and from his Bangladesh Premier League team, they decided after drafting him that they didn't release him, which fair enough. But yeah, it's unfortunate that another Hurricanes draft pick goes bust. Right. So that is the priority list. We'll recap that one again. So we've got the Stars, the Strikers, the Perth Scorchers, then the Renegades, and then you've got the Sixers, Heat, Thunder, and Hurricanes in order of preference of schedule to kick things off. So giving you a little bit of an insight into what our thoughts are and how we'll be approaching this. But mate, let's talk attacking the boost. I mentioned at the start there's a chance I might just go bang, bang. Round 2, round 3 boost, and set my team up. Are you thinking along the same lines, or are you going to hold one?
I think so. I think we probably need to, given that, 9 double game weeks for teams in the first 4 weeks, and then there's only 3 or 2 at the back end of the season. So, there's only 2 after round 5. So if you can structure your team in and around rounds 3 and 4 to cover the Thunder's round 6 double game week, and then Hobart's in round 8, I don't necessarily think you need to load up on Hobart even in round 4 or 5 when you use your last boost. So I think early's the go this year. And again, if you want our thoughts, our ideas, what we're doing, it's all going to be available in our Patreon. The description is below.
Yeah, spot on. I'm looking forward to diving into this a little bit more. But yeah, I'm thinking along the same lines. Round 2 boost, set my team up, target the cheapies and get the money in early so that then I can use that money to target these other guys on the run home. Because from round 5, like you mentioned, there's two doubles, one for the Thunder and one for the Hurricanes, which are 2 teams that you would not consider to be premium teams, right? So
that's right.
You're going to want to get the most balanced squad possible from round 5 onwards and have these guys that are on singles, and that's fine to have guys on singles from there because there aren't really doubles coming up anyway. So
no, it's not.
Yeah, so you're going to have to play it a little bit different this year, which is exciting. You know, I think it opens and levels the playing field a lot from the second half of the season. That's where it's going to be won, not at the start. So getting your cash in early and then getting the best players in for the run home regardless of schedule.
Well, yeah, now that you've said that, I've just done a quick look, mate, and Hobart finished equal third last and Thunder finished dead last year, and they're the 2 teams with the doubles after round 4.
So boost is hashtag boost might get trending on Twitter, I reckon, by the time we finish this. But guys, that's our thoughts on the schedule. Quick one this time. You won't find many episodes that are longer than half an hour in the preseason, just to get you content out there and get you an idea on what we're thinking. But so if you wanted to support the show, all you need to do is go down into the description, hit the link and join on the Patreon. We appreciate all the support. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe and like button. We'd appreciate that as well. We've got plenty more episodes coming your way very soon. But until then, you've been listening to an Insight BBL show. We'll catch you later.
Peace.